Our paths intersected in 2013 during shared stints at Chicago Urban League. During our time together, one conversation would galvanize a brotherhood that remains to this day, a brotherhood that transcends professional courtesy and physical proximity. A transformative leader and one of the leading architects of successful workforce development programming in Chicago, he's a genuinely kind, faith-centered man who believes in and advocates for the inherent value and resiliency of people, specifically people from historically marginalized and intentionally, systemically underserved communities. Please join me in one of Chicago's now generation of leadership, the Chief Mission Officer for Goodwill Industries of Metro Chicago, Clayton Pryor, in the arena right now.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Ready?
Absolutely, thank you. Josh, you ready? All right.
All right, we're going. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Clayton Pryor, Professor Pryor.
Dr. Hillman?
Always a pleasure, sir. We go way back, and we'll talk about a lot of things, but in this limited time where I've given you notes about what cannot be discussed on air, let's go with what we talked about in our pre-interview. But let's begin at the beginning, sir.
Sure.
When and where were you born?
So I was born in Aurora, Illinois. It's about 40 miles west of Chicago. So similar to most black Chicagoans, it's kind of a beeline from Mississippi to Chicago. My grandfather worked at the railroad, got a job out in Aurora, so that's kind of where he planted his flag.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Tell me about the woman and the man who created you.
Sure. So Lori and Clay Pryor. So they're two teenagers, met at a fast food restaurant back in the mid-'70s, married at 19, excuse me.
Wow.
Had 3 kids after that. So pretty much grew up working middle class life. We were kind of the community kids. You know, we grew up a lot with my grandmother, my paternal grandmother. If there was a revival within 50 miles, we were in the house.
Come on.
We were in the house, a woman of faith, a woman of integrity. She served her community, she served her family. So yeah, I grew up with a lot of powerful individuals.
Are your parents still in Aurora?
Yeah,
Wow.
they are still in Aurora.
Excellent.
They're still out there.
And you mentioned they created 3 children.
Yes.
So that's you plus 2 others, because I can do simple math. Where do you fall in that rotation?
So I'm the youngest of 3.
makes
If they
a lot
were
of
in the room,
sense.
they'd say I was the oldest, but I am
Really?
the youngest of the 3 of them. Yeah.
So let's go to there. Growing up, what was the relationship like between the 3 of you?
We ran the streets together. I mean, we ran together. We spent a lot of time, like I said, with my grandmother, with our other cousins. We went to school together. We were in the same schools. We spent a lot of time just figuring it out. So I was the first to do a lot of things, so that's why I say I am the oldest. But we spent a lot of time figuring it out together.
And you're starting from the bottom, working to the top. You're 38, 40, 42.
42.
So you are steps.
We are literal.
Okay.
Literal steps.
And so you built a closeness together. Does that remain now as adults?
Absolutely, absolutely. They're still out in the western suburbs. We still talk. We still get together. You know, their lives look a little different than mine, being in the city. You know, they're doing the family and marriage thing, but you know, life is good. And we enjoy each other.
So let's go back. Why? I think I understand it already because I always look at this show of patterns being set.
Sure.
But why would your siblings, if I were to ask, what are their names?
Corinne and Corey.
So
it's Corey, Corinne, and Clayton. Corinne is a K, though.
Be unique, Corinne. Yes, I love that. Why would they say you were the oldest when, in fact, you were last to meet the earth?
Probably because I think from a young person, my leadership took hold, right? I was one to say, hey, this is what we're doing, this is where we're going. And like I mentioned, I was the first to do a lot of different things. So
Such as?
College.
You first gen?
First generation college graduate, first to live away from home in another state, first to hold the type of role and kind of do some of the things that I've done. So absolutely.
Are they proud of you?
Absolutely.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Where did since I know you all did high school together, where did the three of you
Yeah.
go to high school?
We went to West Aurora High School.
Okay.
Yeah, so we were there in the 90s.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And where'd you go to college?
Southern Illinois University, Carbondale.
Okay.
Carbondale's important.
Much like Ann Arbor when you talk about University of Michigan. I
Absolutely.
got it. And I think that's your undergrad.
Yep.
Did you go to grad school?
I did.
Because that was important. You pointed it out in the pre-interview.
Absolutely. Organizational leadership, Lewis University.
Of course.
Here
Okay.
in Romeoville.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you good student?
You know what? To be honest with you, I was a middle of the road student. I wasn't a good student, but I was not a bad student. I was kind of the kid that was easily forgotten. And I think that really became my passion because if you think about it, those kids who are terrible students, they have all the resources.
Yes.
Those who are gifted students get all the scholarships, they get everything. And for myself, I didn't get any of that. And there was a lot that I had to figure out. So as a passion, really starting my career working with young people, at least my civic career working with young people, it was really finding that middle of the road kid who did not have the guidance, the mentorship, and really pouring into them.
It was seeing yourself in
It
all
was
of them.
seeing myself.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's talk about life and lessons. Tell me about a seminal moment in your life, either exceptionally incredible or incredibly traumatic. But tell me about a moment in your life that stands out as a seminal moment and how that changed you fundamentally.
Sure. I'll give you two, but I'll start back in the 90s. I had a teacher, Miss Coleman, and English teacher working on some assignments, and she sent my paper back to me all marked up in red, and I did my revisions, and she came back all marked in red. And probably the third time I said to her, give me whatever grade you're going to give me because I'm not doing this no more.
Oh, okay. What grade again was this?
This was my freshman year.
Okay.
And, she got me in the corner and she said, Frederick Douglass gave his food away to learn to read and write, and you're giving away knowledge. And I looked at her and probably walked out the classroom like, you don't know what you're talking about. But that stuck with me. That was 25 plus years ago. And I think it was at that moment that I started to value education and realize the privilege that education was. So much so that when I graduated college, I sent her an invitation. And we had not talked in probably 5 years or more. I sent her an invitation. She drove 6 hours to be there to see me cross the stage because I was not that kid. That was not supposed to be my story. So that was one moment. Another moment I'll give, which is ours. And you may remember this conversation. So we worked together some years ago, and I'll paraphrase a bit, but you brought me in the office and you closed the door and you said, "You're great."
Oh, thank goodness. Yeah. Okay, good.
And you said, "Do you recognize your greatness?" And I'm like, "Yeah, You said, no. People need to see and hear what you're doing." And I think in that moment, what you taught me was about building a brand, right? So many times, I think I was taught you kind of come in, you work hard, work with your head down, and people will notice. That's not always true. A lot of times it's half of what you're doing, half of who knows what you're doing. So I think that was a pivotal moment for my career, learning to take my own destiny kind of by the handles and be the driver and not depend on other people to move the chess pieces, but to move them myself. So both of those moments, I think, really helped to drive where I am and where I'm going.
And move them you did, sir. I remember that conversation. I talked about it in the opening. That was a galvanizing moment that cemented our brotherhood. And I'm grateful because sometimes who knows what comes out of this mouth. but yay.
That was a good moment.
But you knocked it out of the park. It was nothing about me. It was always there, and we have to see each other and honor each other.
Absolutely.
And just because your leadership there, you were the director of workforce development. I remember a time that government grant, and you were also the type of leader where sometimes us who were in development go, they just won't answer questions. They won't submit stuff. We want to raise money for this work.
Yeah.
And I remember a time that one of my new staff members was having trouble with a government budget.
Yep.
And you literally, with everything going on, came up from your department, sat in her cube with her, and walked her through it. And she would tell you to this day that is how she learned how to do it excellent. And her respect for you was crystallized. So it's the dash moments. But
Sure.
so you gave as good as you got in that. Let's go back a minute though before we move forward. What was your first paid job?
Man, I worked as a bagger. Dominic's. Come on. I was a bagger. Yes.
Were you good? Because bagging is an art. No. I'm gonna tell you this because sometimes now that there's a lot of do your own bagging.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I knew it though even then where things have to go.
Yeah.
When it's done well. Did you ever get it down pat?
No. I probably
your
wasn't.
ministry?
I probably wasn't there long enough. If I go to Trader Joe's and I watch them do that like Tetris, I'm like, how did they get that done? I was not that guy.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair. Well, then let's move forward. You left me. You left Chicago Urban League. And here's what's interesting. We talk about patterns.
Yep.
You began in 2012. 2008
Yeah.
at Quad City.
Quad County.
Which is closer to home and family.
Yep. Absolutely.
And then in 2012,
12, yeah.
you left Quad County
Yep.
to come up or down the street,
Yeah.
depending on
Yeah.
how you do it, to work for Chicago Urban League, one of the largest Urban
Yes.
League affiliates.
Yep.
And that's where we met.
Yep.
And your role there was director. Tell me what your role was.
Yeah, Director of Workforce Development.
Director of Workforce.
So taking a couple steps back, so I started my career in hospitality. So I did a corporate management training program, spent some time down in Georgia. But I realized in college my passion was about people. And it was really my connection with the Director of Minority Affairs. And he sat and helped us navigate courses and financial aid and scholarships, different things. And I'm like, man, you get paid to sit here and help us every day. That's what I want to do. And of course, I had a business degree, so I went off and did my thing. But after a couple of years, I'm like, this ain't it. This is not it. So
You pivoted.
I did. I pivoted, and I came across the role at the Urban League, and it was a split role. So it was working with pre-college programs, and it was working in workforce development. So I was working, doing college tours, helping young people kind of access, right? So I was, to your point, finding my younger self and giving that pathway that somebody helped to give me. I would say I also connected to a lot of great mentors in my life. I feel like whenever I got off track, there was always somebody to knock me back where I was supposed to be. So I did that. I was there for some years. I got promoted into a couple of roles. I was a director at 23, 24. I went through the National Urban League's Emerging Leader Program, met the CFO at the time at the Chicago Urban League, and moved on into that role. So from there, we met. And things kind of took off, really got a chance to do some incredible things here.
Yeah. And from Chicago Urban League, where you I watched that department transform and grow under your leadership. So I got to see it firsthand. And then in 2015, you left us. And where did you go? And what precipitated that move?
Yeah. So in 2015, I went to Advocate Healthcare, which eventually became Advocate of Rural Health. So I went to be Director of Workforce Development there. They had received an investment from J.P. Morgan Chase, a multi-million-dollar investment to create inroads for individuals on the south and west sides to begin their careers in healthcare.
You were creating that from the bottom up?
From the bottom up. So an opportunity, again, presented itself, steps ordered, and kind of got in there, and we got that launched and made that program happen, trained over 900 people over the course of many years, facilitating movement into healthcare careers. We created some internal mobility programs and started to kind of move into more traditional HR stuff and took over team member learning and did an HBCU scholarship. Just did a lot of great things, had a really great time there.
Good. And then in 2001, because it wasn't enough that we had two pandemics going on. You said, hey, this feels like a good time to take on new responsibilities. That's just the way it goes in my mind.
Of course.
And you left after a successful stint there building something from the ground up that was highly watched. So there was also the pressure of being not only the first, but doing something that really had a lot of significance for the community and doing it well. But in 2021, you left Advocate and you went to Goodwill. What is the full name of the organization?
Goodwill of Southeastern Wisconsin and
Metro
Metropolitan
Chicago.
Yes,
And you went there to become, moving to the C-suite.
Correct.
Chief Mission Officer.
correct.
Why?
It's a good question.
Thank you. It was precise too.
It was. I really consider myself to be, in purpose, on purpose. And I really do believe my steps have been ordered. And, I got a phone call. Everything starts with a call.
Always
and,
does.
I got a phone call and I'm like, Goodwill, I kind of think of our retail and donation centers like most people, not really kind of understanding the community-facing programs and things that we do. But as I was evaluating the opportunity, I really thought, this is a great opportunity to be in front of or to help lead an organization whose sole mission is to help people, right?
Yeah.
So, kind of moving from direct service, you get your energy as that first person gets that job and you get to slap that hand and you get to see people, lives, and communities changed. But as I've moved into other leadership roles, I understand that, that one becomes 1,000, becomes 10,000, becomes 40,000. And I'm able to sit at tables and represent those who don't have that opportunity and create inroads to positions and jobs and roles, and really helping connect people to work, preparing them for life is really our mission. And that's really what I embody. That's who I am as a person. So it was a natural fit.
Wow.
It worked.
Wow. And I remember when I first heard and I saw the time, I'm like, well, that's just spot on. He is now the chief. Like literally, you're like, I need a title
Literally.
that really, literally says, and I said it in the opening, and you have been consistently from the time I met you, that person. I was like, well, this is just perfect.
Yeah.
And we are, the work that we do here, there are such synergies. And you and I have been having conversations from before I joined this organization. Goodwill partners with Chicago State, and that's where I was. And I know what you bring to an already great organization. So it's really exciting for all of us in Chicago. Let me get into your business. I'm sorry. Let me ask my next question.
All right, go ahead.
What brings you joy?
Oh, wow. That's another really good question.
It's like Barbara Walters.
Honestly, in the context of work and non-work, it's helping people to realize their potential, right? I think that my purpose and my passion is people-centered. So a lot of my career, a lot of my life has been around people and helping people. But outside of that, I've, finding myself, right? I like to cycle. I like to get out on my bike. I like to eat. I'm a foodie, so you'll see me at a lot of different restaurants. I like to travel, right? I like to go places that I never imagined that I'd be able to see and do. So that's what brings me joy.
Okay. Are you happy?
Good question. This wasn't in the pre-interview.
Oopsie. Oopsie.
But the answer is yes. And I don't look at happiness as a destination, but I truly believe it's a journey.
Okay.
And I think we go from glory to glory, from hill to mountain to valley to mountain top. And life has not always been easy, right? But I'm grateful for my journey. I'm grateful for the trials, the tribulations, and I'm grateful for where God has me today.
Wow. Okay, let's keep in your business. Have you ever been in love?
Oh.
No.
Of course.
You just want to jump over the table.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
What does, and the reason I'm asking these questions, we're in this still inflection point. And I think we're all asking those questions. What does success look like?
Sure.
The things that I think before the pandemic forced us all to slow down, where you look at the reason why since the murder of George Floyd, and it wasn't the first and unfortunately hasn't been the last, the reason why that resonated so deeply is because I don't believe in luck and happenstance. We were all forced to stop.
Absolutely.
We couldn't run to our boats or our homes, and we literally had to sit with it.
Yeah.
We had to sit with it.
We did.
And I think in this inflection moment, there is the urge as we are taking masks off to kind of say, okay, everything's back to normal.
Sure.
And I'm constantly asking the question of myself and others: was normal enough? And I'm talking to folks who are leaving careers they were in,
Yeah.
and I think what saves you and what saves me
Yeah.
is that we were always in, even if the money wasn't always there,
Yes.
we were in things that we just, it fed our souls.
Yeah.
So I'm always looking at that. Here's another question. Let's just keep going in your business. What are your thoughts on therapy? Because I'm having conversations. We're going to be doing some work on it here
Yeah.
about the pressures that Black men, especially,
Yeah.
and especially the pressures that come. I grew up in the Baptist church. You know, I grew up in the family where we knew Uncle so and so
Yeah.
was touched. Is the words that would be used,
Yeah.
or he's just him. He's special. We protect
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
But there still feels like such a stigma around it. What are your thoughts on mental wellness and therapy and how that impacts folks who are dealing with traumas, housing insecurity, employment insecurity, all of those things? Talk to me about your thoughts on
Sure.
that.
I think we all experience trauma, and I think it's important to recognize that. I think therapy is God-given, right? I think, generations prior to us would tell us, what would they say? Pray about it.
Pray on
right?
it.
Pray on it.
Did you pray?
And I absolutely did. And God is real. And I think that God gives us therapy.
Yeah.
He gives us therapists, and He gives us medication if we need that as well. So I'm a supporter of therapy. I've done therapy. Okay. I've done the work myself. And I continue to do it because, it's not always an end point. It's a journey.
Yeah.
And there are ebbs and flows. There are times that you just need, right? You need someone to talk to.
Yeah.
You need somebody to hear you out. You need somebody to challenge your thought
And
process, your
sometimes it has to
thinking.
be someone who doesn't love you.
There you go.
Yeah,
Who doesn't know you? Who can say, hey, you're wrong.
You're just wrong.
You're just wrong.
You're just wrong.
That's just what it is.
Yes.
So absolutely.
Good.
Great
There's the power
supporter.
of that. I'm probably going to ask you, and I'm doing it on air because there'll be a tape of this, but we're going to be having, in our 48th year, our deepening commitment to continuing our service to community and continuing conversations about things impacting our community.
Sure.
I really do want to have that conversation with other Black men. We'll have other conversations, but this is a unique conundrum. I just saw a story, and I forgot his name, but Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I think it was a Democrat, a senator. They were kind of playfully jostling. The cameras catch it.
Yeah.
But then the next day she does a press conference and she says, I felt attacked, I felt unsafe. We have the tape of it. And so it's just that you're either invisible, as you talked about growing up, or you're the monster.
Yes.
You're told to keep your emotions in check, but how do you really live authentically if you cannot? You and I have a good relationship because I can call you and go, I'm sad. And you're not going to judge me. You're going to be like, man up, tough up. You'll be like, what's wrong, brother?
Yeah.
So that's why I asked you that question. Stay with us. We'll be right back with 3 for the Road.
What's going on, Chicago? And I'm your host, Darius Caffey of The Table, on air where we talk about what's new, what's happening, and what's what in Black LGBTQ culture.
Creating our own spaces is key to not having to feel like we constantly have to fight.
If you're authentic to yourself, you will never, ever lose.
Check us out on cantv.org, the CanTV app, and Channel 19 for some more conversations with our wonderful guests from around the city, both near and far.
Professor Pryor, Clayton Pryor, Chief Mission Officer, Goodwill, Metropolitan Chicago. This is the segment of our show, and I know you have watched the shows. Let's just say that we won't say what number of them you've watched, but let's just say you've watched at least one, parts and pieces. Yes. But this is a segment of our show called 3 for the Road. Yeah. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. You're going to give me 3 answers.
All right.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's begin. Question number 1. If you could have dinner with any person living or dead, who would you choose and why?
Barack Obama. And the reason why, he was young, he was tenacious, he believed in himself when nobody else did, and he convinced us of what he already knew. So if you're listening, let's do lunch. But I'd love to sit down.
Me too.
I'd love to sit down and have a conversation with them.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
That's an insightful answer. I've heard people say that before, but your why is resonating. I can't wait for the three of us to do that. Question number 2. Do you have any regrets?
No regrets. Are there things I would have done differently? Absolutely. Sure. As I think about, you know better, you do better.
Yeah.
But regrets, I would say no. Because I think my path has made me who I am. It's made me stronger. It's made me wiser.
Okay. 2 for 2.
Yeah.
Ready for
All
3?
right, let's do it.
One piece of advice present-day Clayton would have given his 21-year-old self. You did that, church.
I did.
That got your spirit.
I did. It hit me. I would say worry less. It will all work out. Worry less.
Still working on that at 54 3/4. Sir. That is good counsel to your 21-year-old self.
It will always work out.
Always work out. I have a final question. Maybe. It's the
Oh
final.
my God.
This is not. This is good. This is easy breezy.
For sure.
What's one thing that your friends might be surprised to learn about you?
Another zinker. Here's one.
Okay.
I'm a PK. I'm a preacher's kid.
Are you?
Yeah. Most people do not know that.
I don't think we'd be surprised, though. No, not. No, your faith. I talked about it in the opening.
Yeah.
Like you don't toss it in folks' faces, but it really does resonate. So that is not a leap. That
Sure.
would be. So try it again. Give us something that we would really be shocked by.
That's true, though. Most people don't know that.
Doesn't mean we'd be surprised to know it.
Oh, well, I don't have nothing else.
Okay, fine.
I really don't.
Oh, I've never had an interview where he goes, "I'm done. I got nothing
I
else."
have nothing else.
I have one final question.
Sure.
When all is said and done, and more will be said than done, of your long and illustrious tenure, let's just go with Goodwill. What do you want your legacy there to be?
That's interesting. Good question. I'd answer that in a couple of ways, but I think more importantly, I'd want my legacy to be that I helped to change lives and communities. That people will know that I was here. When I'm long gone, that the impact that I've had on our community, on the African American community, on those who are often forgotten about, passed over, who haven't been given the proper opportunities, that me sitting at the tables that I've had the privilege to be at will make a difference for years to come.
Doors of the church are open.
Yeah.
Clayton Pryor, it's been a pleasure. I have known you. You have been a partner, a friend for a good piece, the majority of my time here in Chicago. I'm grateful. Thank you for sitting in this chair. Thank you for continuing
Thank you for having
partnership. It's over. This part. I know, breathe. And while I do that, Clayton, my brother, thank you. And Chicago and beyond, thank you for joining us in the arena tonight. Let me leave you with a final thought for the road. It's courtesy of the late, great Nelson Mandela. The greatest glory in living lies not in never failing, but in rising every time we fall. Until next time, take good care of you and each other. Good night.